Hi, this is Karen, and I have vitiligo. This podcast will be about living my life as a person with vitiligo, sharing to you what it is, what it does to your body, how people responded to seeing me with white patches around my body, and a lot more experiences that I've had to live with ever since I was young. Part 1. How it all started. When I was a little kid, I can say that I was living a pretty normal life, I was playing outside, playing with friends, and I was even part of a drum and lyre band. But I wasn't playing lyre or drums. I was a dancer. Surprise for the people who know me, yes. I was once a dancer, but not the dancer that you would probably imagine. I was with the band, holding a flag and dancing I guess that's called a majorette. I'm not sure. That's a long time ago. So that's what I was doing when I was a kid. Until one day, my mom was fixing my hair because, of course, kids need their moms to fix their hair. And so she saw that I already had white strands of hair as young as I was. Maybe I'm around 6 years old that time. So I think she was kind of shocked, or maybe she was curious why I had those at an early age. But as far as I remember, we just brushed it off because there's no big deal in seeing gray hair at a child's head, right? So that's what happened until it started showing on my actual skin. I started having these white patches that started at the back of my head. And that's the time we started thinking that it might be something more serious. So we went to a lot of doctors, and different doctors have different opinions. I was a child, and it shocked me every time they would tell me about the results and what they think it is. So I also had to go through a lot of different treatments, although those are only creams that you put on your skin. But it's difficult. It's a tiring process because when you wake up, you have to put on this cream. After you take a bath, you have to put on this cream. In the afternoon, you also have to put on a cream, and you have to go under the sun for like 15 minutes. So I remember being displayed outside our gate just so the medicine could do its job. Some doctors said that it's an allergy. Some said that it's an, if you know what an is, because I forgot what it is in English. But yeah, an. It's the white, looks like white patches as well, but it's itchy. Whereas mine wasn't itchy. Isn't itchy at all. So those were the things that other doctors said until we went to this specialist. She's a dermatologist, and she told me that it's not it's not an allergy, it's called vitiligo. And the way she presented it to me wasn't shocking. It was actually very informative, and I liked it as a child. What she did was to show me pictures of people who have it, and the first person there, probably the only person I remember, is Michael Jackson. So Michael Jackson is a black American, as we all know, but he appeared to be white simply because he had vitiligo, and that's what she explained to me. Just like Michael Jackson, you also have vitiligo, which is a skin condition that makes your skin appear to be white. She even told me that vitiligo is not contagious at all. I repeat, it's not contagious at all. Because a lot of people started distancing themselves from me, and even strangers do that. When I ride vehicles, public vehicles, a lot of people would have second thoughts on sitting beside me. They always end up sitting at a different place, simply because they're scared that they can get the white patches when they come near me. But no, that's not true at all. Vitiligo is not contagious. So I started a new set of medicine, now under a new doctor, and surprisingly, it worked. The white spots on my body turned brown or tan again, but then some parts were having white patches, the other parts were recovering. So it's like an endless cycle. It was something that a child wouldn't want to go through. I had to give up activities that I once enjoyed doing simply because I can't expose myself to the sun that much. And it also started showing up even more. So a lot of people would stop and look at me from head to toe. And I think that's the most hurtful thing that ever happened to me as a child. By the time I was 8, I guess, people started calling me different names, especially kids from my school. They would call me White Lady, they would call me Dalmatian, they would call me an alien, and a lot of other things that made my life miserable, I can say. It was super difficult. If you think about it, childhood should be the time that you're enjoying, should be the time that you're learning more about yourself, about other people, about being in the world, existing in the world. But I guess the world introduced itself to me in a mean way. The kid who once felt confident and able became a kid who was shy, who was scared, who thinks she can't do anything at all simply because of how her skin looked like and how other people looked at her. Part 2. How I got bullied. School isn't always a safe place for everyone. I had tons of experiences at school that made me feel inferior, that made me feel insecure. It made me feel less of who I actually am, simply because of people who call you different names, of people who try to make fun of you and try to convince you that you're nothing. I've had countless experiences wherein people made me feel bad about myself, and most of them happened at school. I remember when I was in grade 4, I think. By that time, I had white patches on my right eyelid, at the center of my nose, both my elbows, my right hand, both my knees, and then white patches scattered also on both my feet. And some guys from our class would get loose powder and they would put it on their right eyelid at the center of their faces, trying to imitate where my white patches were. And then my other classmates would laugh at them, thinking that it's funny, but it wasn't. I don't know why, but I don't like crying in public. So what I did was I tried to make myself look brave, to make myself look strong. You know what I did? Inaway ko. Inaway ko yung batang yon. What's the most sensible thing a kid can do, right? I felt the need to fight. I felt the need to let them know that what they're doing is not fine at all. Dahil bata pa ako noon and I was desperate to find ways to look brave, I did what they did to me. Pag minumura nila ako, mumurahin ko din sila. If they hit me, I would hit them too. Sorry na, medyo bad girl pa ako noon. And then another instance was in science class. We were studying different diseases of the skin, and the teacher showed a picture of a person with tinea flava. I think that's the name. And then people started looking at me, and some of the mean guys explicitly said, "Uy, si Triz yun na." And that's the time I bursted into tears. I couldn't take it anymore. And you know what's more disappointing? Teachers didn't do anything about it. I never had the experience wherein the teacher stopped my classmates from doing the things that they were doing. And that's one of the main reasons why I chose to be a teacher. But we'll talk about that in another episode. Remember when I told you that the world introduced itself to me in a mean way? That's because a lot of strangers have made me feel bad about myself. One time I was walking at our street and then a child approached me. This is what he said. Ate, ate, sabi nun hindi ka daw tao. That's what he said to me, and that's a little kid. How can someone so small, so young, can be that mean to another person? I couldn't understand the world. I couldn't understand why people are like that. I couldn't understand why there are people who have this kind of mindset. I wanted to punch him right then and there, but instead I walked away. I acted like I was fine, but I was ready to cry a river. It wasn't just the feeling of being told that you're not a person by a stranger. It's also the feeling of being ashamed because I was with someone that time. I was with an ate. I was so ashamed that the ate had to witness me being bullied by a stranger, being told that I was not a person. I was so scared to respond or to react inappropriately, so I just left. Another instance was when I was in a public vehicle and a mother and child went inside the vehicle as well. The child sat beside me and the mom was across us. When the mom saw me, she immediately signaled to the child to move away from me. I saw it with my two eyes. She signaled to the child and I felt really, really bad. And once again, I wanted to cry, but I can't. While I was growing, my white patches were also spreading. So by the time I was in grade 6 and about to graduate grade school or elementary, I felt so insecure that I couldn't wear shorts. I had to wear pants even though I'll just go to the nearest store. I had to wear pants whenever there are visitors. I had to wear pants even when everyone's wearing a dress. Dressing up has become a nightmare for me. Going to occasions, going to simple events outside, it all became so difficult. Choosing what to wear, choosing how to wear it, and thinking of what other people would say suddenly became a big problem in my life. There were instances when we had family occasions and I would be left crying simply because I couldn't find anything that I feel comfortable wearing. I would always hear statements like, ang simple-simple lang yan, pinoproblema mo pa. Or, bakit pinoproblema mo yan? Damit lang naman yan. Clearly, hindi nila nagigets. It's so easy to say that it's a simple thing. Maybe for you, it is simple. But for me, it's a lot more than that. As much as possible, I wanted to get rid of people's stare. As much as possible, I wanted no attention at all from strangers. So in our family, I was called a child with S. Sumpong. Palagi akong may sumpong. Yeah, I agree. I cry all the time when we go out. I cry all the time because I couldn't find anything to wear. And I hope you understand that it's not because I wanted to feel like that. It's because I was so scared. Yung S, hindi na sumpong. Scared. By the time I was in high school, thank God, people there were more mature, I guess. Lesser people call me names. Lesser people try to bully me. There was just one instance when my classmate told me, inom ka kasi ng inom ng gatas, kaya nagkaroon ka ng puti-puti sa balat. And I think that was the time na naiinis siya sa akin. That's why he tried to say those stuff to make me feel bad as well. And he was right. I felt bad. We were in class and I started crying silently. I tried my best not to get the teacher's attention. But the teacher went to me and asked if I was okay. Thank you. I could name a lot more instances where people made me feel bad or told me stuff that hurt my feelings, but I'll stop here. Yes, they were definitely hard to go through and painful, but these moments were also teaching moments for me. Part 3. How I keep surviving. So how do I deal with all of these things? That depends on which part of my life you want to know. Of course, when I was still young, my response would always be to fight and then to cry. It was more of a revenge type of response. But as I grew older, I realized that there can be different responses or reactions to whenever people would say bad stuff about me, or when my mind is telling me something bad about myself. My responses also depend on certain mood sometimes. For example, if I feel bad or if I had a bad day and then I would see a stranger staring at me from head to toe and I know that that person is judging me, I would also stare at that person. Believe me, ginagawa ko to. Tumitingin ako sa mata nung nakatingin sa akin hanggang sa mag-give up siya. It's a silent battle, you know? That's what I do. Tititigan mo ko. Sige, I'll also stare at you until you give up. And it doesn't just end there. Kabisado ko na yung mga ibang tao minsan. Kapag tumingin sila once, it's not yet the end. Meron pang pangalawa yan. So, I don't stop staring at them until they look at me the second time around. Nakakatawa kasi sila na lang yung mahihiya sa sarili nila na parang, ay, nakatingin pa pala siya. So, that's just one of the crazy things I do when I'm having a rough day. Pero hindi ko naman ganun everyday, okay? Don't judge me. Kasi most of the time, I try to tell myself na hindi lahat ng tumitingin sa akin, ginajudge ako. Some are just unaware of my condition. Some are just curious. And I know when a person is curious. Sobrang funny kasi sa sobrang tagal ko nang may vitiligo, nasanay na yata ako kung sino yung tumitingin sa akin ng judge at kung sino yung tumitingin sa akin ng curious lang. I've had experiences when a stranger was curious and I got to talk to the person to explain what it is. Kasi nga, curious lang sila. And they don't actually judge me. Yung mga ganong experiences, syempre, yun yung mga nakakatuwa because people wanna know what it is. Not because they wanna judge you, but because they're just curious. So, naging, pa siya, educational experience para dun sa tao. Naging enlightenment sa kanya, di ba? Because of those experiences, I got to realize na madali akong matandaan. There was one time, merong 7-Eleven sa kanto namin. Meron ding 7-Eleven sa Blumentritt kasi I used to study at Manila. Tapos nandun yung sakay ng jeep. So, pagpasok ko ng 7-Eleven, sabi sa akin nung cashier, "Ma'am, di ba tiga ganitong lugar kayo?" Tapos sabi ko, "Opo, bakit?" "Nakikita kasi kita dun eh." So, out of all the people na pumapasok sa 7-Eleven, hindi to sponsored, okay? Lahat ng pumapasok dun sa store na yon, hindi niya natandaan, pero ako, natandaan niya ako, kahit sa ibang branch pa yon. Simply because I have vitiligo. And that's when I got to realize na I can make use of this. I can take advantage of the idea that people easily remember me. Hindi ako nagjo-joke, promise. Hindi ako nag-feeling bayani. Pero moments like that help me appreciate having vitiligo. And especially the idea that I can influence people because I have vitiligo. That's really one of the purposes of my life, I believe. Kasi I pleaded so many times for the Lord to remove this from me. As in, bata pa lang ako, I would always pray and ask God na, please Lord, tanggalin niyo na po sa akin to. And I believed na tatanggalin ni Lord. Pero hindi lahat ng struggles tatanggalin ni Lord sa'yo eh. There are things that you have to live with simply because your purpose is connected to that. And I believe this is one of those things. Being reminded that I'm an instrument of His purposes help me survive. Having the hope that comes from the Lord is what helps me survive. Kasi by the world's standards, by the world's views, hindi talaga tayo masasatisfy. And I can attest to that kasi tinry ko na maraming beses to please the people around me, to please myself, but nothing happened. I still ended up feeling insecure, feeling unsatisfied, and holding on to the words of the one who made me helps me survive, makes me survive. In Psalm 139, verse 14, it says there, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. Being told that I am wonderful, that I am made in His image, is something that I will always go back to. Whenever my mind would play games with me, whenever I would think like I'm not pretty enough, I'm not good enough, I would always go back to that. God made me in His image, and I praise Him because I'm wonderfully made. So if you also struggle with appreciating yourself, then maybe you want to go to the one who designed you, to the one who created you, because in Him, you will find who you truly are. Thank you for listening to the first episode of my podcast, That Thing Called Vitiligo. I hope that you learned something from the first episode. And if you know someone who has vitiligo, why don't you share this podcast to them? And also, if you are the person who has vitiligo, please message me. I would like to know you and share your experiences as well. Thank you again, and catch you on the next episode.